Now, I'm sure you guys have seen all the videos and discussions surrounding the different directions both Twisted and Severity are taking, and I'm sure this video will be nothing new in that regard. However, I still feel like I want to say my own personal thoughts to sort of add to this discussion, since that's always necessary to hear for any game, even in the early stages for the case of Severity. And before I get into all of this, just to be very clear, this is my own personal take on these two games. If you agree or disagree, that's perfectly fine. I'm just kind of discussing, so don't take what I say too seriously since they're both just games. I don't mean to try and say that these two games should stray away from their current visions, especially since Severity isn't even out yet. If the developers continue on doing what they're doing, that's perfectly fine. Again, this is just a discussion, and one opinion shouldn't sway everyone's entire goal. Firstly, starting with the recent star of the show, Severity. It comes with a pretty darn good entrance. The tornado visuals, UI, and map all look fantastic and really show that the growth of storm chasing games is not stopping anytime soon. I think they finally nailed the tornado shapes here, and it looks like there are more different shapes they can take on instead of the same cones and stovepipes. However, there is an issue that kind of nags me about Severity. And I know the developers have heard this all before, so this won't be anything new to them, unfortunately. But it's just that more realistic angle the game is taking on in comparison to, say, Twisted or Helicity. And just to be entirely transparent here, realism has never really clicked with me, even in storm chasing games. I personally find it too repetitive in nature and not really all that interesting after the first couple chases. This just kind of makes me have rough feelings regarding the first couple glimpses of Severity's development, since its goal was to be a more realistic storm chasing game compared to the others. And to be honest, I'm just a bit worried that it won't appeal to me, or that it will go too overboard with its realism. And just to clarify, this has been spoken out about with statements that the weaker and smaller tornadoes will still find their way to be cool and interesting in Severity. And if done right, yes, that would be absolutely amazing. But I feel like these two aspects don't really mix well in the context of it being a game. You tend to have to exaggerate things in video games to make them seem more impactful. But doing so may eliminate that realistic goal entirely. So I'm not really sure how the game will be able to keep the weaker tornadoes interesting without spoiling them. There's also some things that I saw being considered, such as getting stuck in mud or ditches, that I feel could greatly disrupt the game's pace if implemented incorrectly, due to you and essentially the game coming to a sudden halt. I mean, I can't really play the game for myself yet since it's not out yet, and it's probably not even that playable, to be honest. But it gets me a little worried about my enjoyment of it, and others as well. And yeah, if I don't enjoy it, I don't enjoy it. I mean, it all really comes down to what people prefer, and the balance of what's done to contribute to the scare factor. For the case of Twisted State, it can be very easily swayed in one direction, causing a huge mess for both realism fans and arcade fans. Speaking of that, let's move on to Twisted. I think it's just lost a lot of the charm it's had. Now, the game isn't necessarily terrible in its current state. It's a lot better than the previous 3 updates in my opinion. The visuals are quite a bit better, and the gameplay is a little closer to its golden era. However, I think it's still missing that charm of said era. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's just because that charm was more so for its time, and it's no longer the storm chasing game on Roblox, since Severity is giving it a good run for its money. But I also think a major part of it is that the game lacks consistency, specifically with its updates and, frankly, its unreliable fixing to bugs and such. To put it simply, the game's development cycle is rough, to say the least. I also think that my personal disdain for realism in storm chasing games sort of stems from Twisted's attempts at it. Most of what Twisted tries to do for realism just doesn't really work for the gameplay that's already implemented. For me, this usually comes from Twisted bogging down the tornadoes, especially during 1.21.1. The wind fields were really weak, and the shifting was way too overtuned for its gameplay. This also stems into features like hydroplaning and vehicle damage being haphazardly introduced in my opinion. Hydroplaning doesn't really offer much, and it makes the vehicles feel clunky and like they're sliding around at 5 miles an hour. As for the vehicle damage, the only thing you really need to worry about is the engine, and almost nothing else matters. It just makes me wonder why it was introduced if there's so little into it. To put it lightly, the game's not in the best spot in terms of development, especially with a lot of major contributors leaving the team. It's pretty unfortunate to see the game in this strange fallen state, where it's succeeding in numbers, sure, but it still feels like a shell of its former self. I will still be sticking around for the new map though. Hopefully both Severity and Twisted would be able to find their footing and achieve something great in the future. Alright, that's gonna do it for this little discussion video. I know this is like nothing new to anybody, but hey, it's another voice out there. And just to reiterate, this isn't really meant to sway anyone's opinions or visions on the games. It's just my personal thoughts on the matter, and I just wanted to get it out there. So, with all that said, see ya in the next one.